Alright, as promised, here's my reading on the current Russia-Ukraine situation, which seems like it could be potentially World War III. What's going to happen? I took a look with my tarot cards into the future. Before I do this reading, I want to say that I think there are many types of psychics out there, and I consider myself a linguistic storytelling psychic in the sense that I understand language and stories in a deep way that allows me to see outcomes, but I tend to not like the idea that the future is set in stone and that nothing can be changed. So instead of being a tarot reader, maybe I'm more of a tarot writer in the sense that I can change the world, but you can change the world too, and that we're all changing the world with our thoughts and what we put into the world. I don't claim to see the future because I think a good story can be reframed and rewritten at any moment. Having said that, I do make predictions with the tarot because I think the tarot allows not just me, but anyone, if you're good at reading it, to see more deeply into situations as they are right now and to see potential energies as they come up. So I did do a reading on Russia and Ukraine. I'm not saying I'll never be wrong in my predictions, but I've been very accurate in my predictions on YouTube. Alright, let's look at Russia and Ukraine. You may want to take a look at some point at my video that I did on World War situation in 2022. I looked not just at Europe and Russia, but all the continents, so check that out. And be sure to subscribe for more relevant videos to all manner of current events and monthly horoscope readings. But let's zoom in on Russia and Ukraine because something's happening right now. As I make this video, troops are clustered along the Russian border. Vladimir Putin, he seems to justify this by, he wants a border of non-NATO states, and it seems like more and more NATO states are getting closer to Russia, and that's freaking him out. Officials from American and UK embassies are being evacuated. Troops and jets and ships are being sent in. It seems like preparation for a big war. What is going to happen? Alright, so first I took a look at what is the actual potential for Russia to invade Ukraine. For all we know, this could just be Putin posturing and much like North Korea using weapons to, intimidate people and remind them of his power and so on. Is that the case here? And the card that came up was the Emperor. And the Emperor is a very powerful character, a very strong-willed character who he feels that people should bow down to him as the Emperor. And Putin has an enormous amount of power. He's arguably, north of China, the most powerful person in Europe and Asia. The Emperor is also very good at strategy. So I could see Putin just doing this as an exercise to intimidate the West and show that he doesn't want to allow any states to have contact with Russia that are part of NATO. But I admit this is a little difficult for me to read because the Emperor is a very powerful character, and if he wants to attack, he will. I don't think he's just posturing. I think he does actually have an interest in the Ukraine as a strategic position and definitely like keeping NATO away from Russia. However, the Emperor is very intelligent and strategic, and right now, without having fired a shot, he hasn't lost anything. He has the troops, amassed on the border, but there hasn't been any conflict at this point. You might say that this is just, a posturing and a way of when he gets, the U.S. at the negotiating table or whoever else is involved, that it allows them to ensure that the Ukraine remains unallied with NATO in any way whatsoever. So my reading at this moment is that Putin is willing to go to war. He will go to war if he feels it's necessary and it's justified. However, I wouldn't say he wants war. I wouldn't say it's like necessarily the best solution for him, but he knows what he wants, and that is not to have NATO anywhere near Russia. But as a card that is skilled in strategy and war, I think the Emperor does remain flexible when he needs to. And at the moment, I think he's enjoying having the US and these other countries respond to getting them revved up and fearful, because all he has to do is sit back, and as long as they don't attack him, which is extremely unlikely. As long as he doesn't cross the border, nothing's gonna begin. I also took a look at the potential for this to develop into a larger world war, and the card that came up was the Ace of Wands, which what I'm seeing with this warfare is, because this is wands oriented, I'm seeing this more as turning into more of like a Cold War situation with, a lot of the war that is happening between the US and Russia, between US and China, is taking place online and through sanctions, through trade disagreements, cyber warfare and all that. So I see this turning more into this continual Cold War between Russia and the West. But I'm not seeing this turn into World War III level war. Finally, I asked, by the end of this year, what can we expect to have occurred and what will be the state of Ukraine? And the card that came up was the Eight of Cups. And this is kind of a bleak, low energy card, and I feel like this is the aftermath of, don't get me wrong, I think this isn't going to be World War III, but I think there is a good potential for armed conflict, and this likely the people that will suffer the most are the people of Ukraine, and I'm not seeing it overall very positive. I don't think it's going to just be, even though I think there is going to be a lot of cyber warfare and things like that, I think there will be some level of physical conflict. I just don't see it escalating to World War III or an entire European theater of war. I don't see Russia seizing Ukraine, and I think ultimately they will lay off the Ukraine, but the situation is basically going to be that Ukraine is not going to become a NATO state anytime soon. That'll be like one of the conditions for this to happen. But this whole process, I don't see it going super well, but I also think it could be a lot worse. As I said, this process is still developing. I'm hoping that it just remains like a minor show of, kind of like what we get with North Korea, like they'll show force, but they're not really interested in going to full-scale war. That's my reading of the energies as they are right now. Speaking of North Korea, I realized when I did my look at world conflict, I didn't really even touch on North Korea, and they have been somewhat active lately, so I thought now would be a good time to do a reading on them as well. What is the potential for war, and what are their plans? So be sure to subscribe for my future tarot readings, and if you would like a personal tarot reading, I do them on Super Peer right here. And I'll see you there. Bye.